So next up, we're going to be checking out Sublight Drive Craft's 90s Shareware games had cool spaceships. I heard spaceships. I'm in on this one. Let's jump down and check it out.
How to talk about escape velocity.
What?
I mean, I can read you the wiki article.
Oh, it's an actual game.
Show you some gameplay.
Okay, this is going to sound weird. For some reason, I thought this was going to be like an actual physical tabletop game. I guess it makes more sense like an RTS.
But that doesn't get at how every sound effect is burned into my psyche, from weapons firing to the
Oh god, they have the asteroid-style controls.
ambient noise on landing screens. How I know every corner of every map, because I visited every system with the persistence and zeal only an 8-year-old is capable of.
Yep.
My earliest conceptions of what a sci-fi universe looks and feels like were formed by these games. Escape Velocity, the original Escape Velocity, is a 1996 Shareware game, published by Ambrosia Software for Mac OS 9. It's best described as a top-down 2D space trading simulator.
Oh.
Gameplay-wise, you fly around, taking on cargo missions or buying and selling commodities on different planets to earn money, avoiding...
I'm having so much both nostalgia for the 90s and realizing I did not have a PC that could play this in the 90s. Oh, dude. To give it a long time. My PC in the 90s that we had as a family, it didn't have color. Yeah. I think it was only late 90s where we finally upgraded to 96 or 7. Prior to that, floppy disks were too advanced.
Or battling pirates as you go. If that sounds vaguely like a description of the space simulator game Elite, well, you're not far off.
Elite?
Matt Birch, the game's designer, has said that an inspiration for Escape Velocity was reading the game manual for Elite, though not playing it, since...
Game manual? I've heard of Elite Dangerous, but I'm assuming that's a different thing than just Elite. Also, Sturk, my PC was invisible? I mean, as a child, it felt that way. It literally was just the black screen with green text. That's all it was early on.
He only had the manual, not the actual game.
Oh.
The architecture of Escape Velocity was built to be easily moddable, and in turn, a whole community grew out of making and sharing mods.
Oh.
These mods are...
Oh, so basically what Skyrim became.
Plugins, as they were called, ranged in scope from adding new guns or ships, all the way up to total conversions that swapped out the setting and universe for a completely new one.
Oh.
It was one of these mods, a total conversion being developed by Peter Cartwright, that got the attention of Ambrosia. They decided it was impressive enough that they hired him on to turn his fan project into a full sequel.
Oh.
Which eventually became Escape Velocity Override. Override expanded the scope of the game.
Oh, so they literally just hired the fan-made work to take over as the next part. I've heard of similar things happening, but never from an outside source. For example, I think Tears of the Kingdom was initially just extra for the Zelda full gameplay. What was it? Breath of the Wild? But that was still made internally. Huh.
Game with a much bigger universe, new factions, new ships and planets, but didn't mix up the basic formula too much. Run cargo, buy upgrades, join a faction, and maybe do some story missions. Story being a pretty loose term here.
Oh.
The third game in the series, Escape Velocity Nova, was a much bigger step forward. Like Override, Nova was originally a fan project being developed by a team of...
You can actually see a lot of extra detail as they go on. Like the various ships here. It's like kind of flat, but you see what they're looking at. And even just the small symbol, you can't quite see. I'll remove my face quickly. Where it says Override.
Run card loose forward.
And then this
like
one,
Override,
it's way more
a fan
detailed.
Project being developed by a team of students from Tasmania, of all places.
Really?
They were hired on by Ambrosia. Nova had huge graphical improvements over the...
Yeah, it looks honestly pretty damn impressive. Also, you're still playing over a flat field where you're the only one doing, so there's no collision mechanics. Okay.
Previous games, a brand new, much bigger universe, 6 fully written and fleshed out storylines, along with a few other side stories, technical and quality of life improvements. You get the picture. Of all the games, Nova is the one that I spent the most time with. It's the most polished, the biggest, has the most replayability, and the spaceships are cool as hell.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I'm not going to make a spaceship from Nova. At least not today.
Wait,
What's
what?
up, everyone? I'm Sublight Drive, and at some point, someone who worked on Override was kind enough to release the original 3D files for every ship in the game, and I downloaded them.
Are we getting like someone 3D printing this? That would be kind of cool.
The actual game isn't in 3D, all of the graphics are sprites, but those sprites were made from renders of 3D models.
Oh, shit.
This pointy sucker is the Voinian Frigate. The Voinians are the designated bad guys of Override, flying pointy gray ships with no shields and the heaviest armor in the game. This first print...
No shields. Oh, he actually did print it.
I didn't actually record a time-lapse of because I didn't think I was going to make a video out of it. I just wanted to have one for fun.
Snapped right off.
When I held the finished print in my hands, though, I knew right away I had to do it justice. It's just such a good shape.
Oh?
And moreover, I knew it would be a fun challenge.
Oh, God, yeah, the support's failing on him. I've done that so many times. I have the same machine. It's good.
To try and take something that was obviously 3D printed and give it the texture and weight of something with thick armor plating. The first step of that, though, is printing out a slightly bigger model, since this little one didn't quite cut it. Some of the supports came loose here, but it didn't affect the quality much, especially since all the support interfaces will be hidden once everything comes together.
Also, you lucky son of a bitch, they actually came away. I've had so many issues where they bond too closely.
That being said, the supports did still need some encouragement to come free.
Yeah.
The worst offenders I needed to scrape out with a hobby.
I hope you're wearing glasses. I've had so many issues with these things being stuck on something and then the Mendel just looking like it's about to snap. Like, there's a reason I actually brought up freaking pliers to my desk so that when I had to pull off these kind of things, I could just put on glasses or more glasses because they needed to get in there and rip.
Blade to get to a point where I could push the turret bases into place.
Also, he's cutting towards his finger. Oh, God, I just... Cool print, though.
Here, you can see the size difference between the two models a little bit more clearly. Now, as always, the number one thing that makes FDM printers non-ideal for model making is the print lines. This is a little low-power rotary sander that I've got that will make a decent first pass.
I mean, it's half the reason I do 3D resin. I've done large prints, too. They work out fine. It's just resin. I would never, like, literally, though, I can never do this because you need so much of a steady hand not to accidentally gouge the models. Because here's the thing about these kind of prints, where if you do FDM, there's going to be open sections in the middle. They don't do solid prints unless you set it to 100% fill, in which case, I mean, they're very strong that way because they're huge, but they're also very heavy, very fast.
Before I go
you could easily gouge
I make
this.
some registration marks on the turret bases so that once I start adding more details, I can keep everything lined up.
Oh?
Kind of leaves a neat pattern on the cylinder.
So he doesn't go too much detail, make it not fit. Okay, that makes sense.
Next, I want to apply some kind of rough cast steel texture on the surface. And to start that process off, I'm going to use this rotary cutting tool. I'm essentially adding semi-random gouges and scrapes to give the surface a more varied texture.
Interesting, but again, he must have made the wall very thick because sometimes when you do FDM prints, the wall on the outside, the actual thing you see, is not that thick to save material.
It's not lost on me that I'm intentionally removing the fabrication marks from one kind of process, only to add fake fabrication marks from a totally different process.
Yep.
Doing this leaves a whole bunch of these little tags and flakes of plastic, and despite my best efforts to try other solutions, I found that my fingernail was the best tool for removing them.
Also sandpaper. But that leaves its own marks.
I definitely did a lot of refining my technique for making these gouges as I went, getting them smaller and occasionally overlapping them.
I've actually seen similar effects trying to make rock look weathered, so you have stratification, which is actually what it looks more like. I have no idea what these are made in game, though.
Here I tried to use a wire brush to clean up the flakes, but I have no idea if it made any difference. I just went back to my fingernail afterwards.
Yeah. God, there's plastic everywhere.
Still, you can see how it's starting to look a lot less like plastic and more like some rough cast metal. Now, to soften off the harsher edges and get rid of some of the smaller, more persistent tags, I'm going to brush over the whole thing with some plastic cement. I'm using Weld-On 3 for this, which is officially an acrylic solvent, but it seems to work just fine on PLA.
Why plastic cement? Like, super glue would work just... Oh, because it probably has a quicker drying time. You don't want that literally to go as flush.
This has the side effect of making the whole surface super shiny.
Yeah.
For the next step, I'm going to use some Tamiya putty. Nominally, this stuff is a thick goop used for gap filling, but I'm going to use it as a surface finisher.
Really?
I did a little experiment here to see how thinning it down with different solvents looked, including water as my control.
See, I actually have a bunch of that. Granted, I have Tamiya putty white for various models I've worked on. I've never thought to thin it down, though.
In In the end, I went with some leveling thinner that's normally meant to be used with enamel paints.
Oh. That is very aggressive thinner then.
Mr. Color here is the good stuff, but I basically never paint with enamels, so...
If you ever do this, make sure you have protection on. One, because the Tamiya is actually toxic in its own right. And two, any type of thinner that's not water, you do not want to do that. No. Make sure you have respirators on when you do this.
I don't feel bad about using it for this.
Oh, gloves might be a bad idea. Or not a bad idea. Yeah, it's just dissolving into it.
I initially thinned down the putty a bit too much, so although it did do a good job of filling in any remaining print lines, it wasn't leaving behind the kind of rough surface finish that I wanted. As always though, after a bit of
it just became paint. Huh.
refining, I figured out a good ratio and a sort of stippling motion that created the texture that I was looking for. I'll also...
For anyone wondering, stippling is literally just poking it with the edge of the brush. Don't do it with a brush you want to use more than once, though, because it loses the fine tip if that's what you're looking for.
Note that you can hear the fan running in the background here because this is a particularly noxious mix of chemicals, and I already plan on dying from the microplastics in my system. I don't need to add VOC-induced brain damage to the mix.
Again, that's why I mentioned a respirator. Just wear one.
Wear a mask, kids.
It's doing a lot of work to make it look not like plastic. Not the worst way to do it, though.
Alright, now I'm going to take a break from horrible solvents to prep the turrets a bit more. I started by measuring out some spots that are directly across from one another and poked some pilot holes.
Oh, is he going to make a separate turret for it? Okay.
From there, I can use
Because again, I mentioned that these things are mostly hollow. That's why the hole goes through center
a drill
so easily.
to get the rest of the way through.
Sorry, I've seen so many horrific videos of accidents when you drill towards any part of your body. I know it's going slow. I know it's very well controlled. That's still a level of that I look at and I'm just immediately going, that might be a problem.
The hole I drilled is just the right size for this wooden skewer, which will eventually become a mounting point for the guns.
Oh. So the guns are going to be attached to that rather than glued directly on it. I don't know what the guns in the game look like.
Speaking of the guns, it's time to make the guns. I've got a bunch of this brass tubing that I've historically not used very often because it's a pain in the butt to cut.
Yeah, it's brass. It's not small.
Once I've got all my pieces marked out, I can whip out my new tool, this mini pipe cutter. It works by basically clamping a little pizza cutter wheel to the tube, and then you spin it around while gradually tightening the clamp to cut into the material.
I think I've seen these before. I think the electricians had a lot of those. Maybe not electricians. Wire cutters? Oh, plumbers. I've seen plumbers with these for bigger ones for cutting pipes.
Works pretty well and is a lot less messy than using my Dremel, so I'm for sure going to keep using it.
Yeah?
The only downside is it leaves these kind of beveled edges on the cuts.
Oh.
Not the worst, but since I want these to look pretty clean, I'm going to file them down to something smoother.
Again, make sure to clean up after yourself because metal shavings are not something you want to just randomly find anywhere. And a file just to make the inside safe.
Once I've got my whole collection of tubes, it's time to start sticking them together. In my infinite wisdom, the pipes I got don't telescope cleanly into one another, so I used a bit of masking tape to make up the difference.
Yeah.
From there, I'm just sticking them together with CA glue.
CA? Contact adhesive, probably.
If these joins had to support anything other than their own weight, I would use something more permanent, like solder or maybe a mechanical connection, but for these little guys, super glue works just fine.
Oh, Sino, that's the glue. Okay. Honestly, though, super glue is pretty damn strong if you use it right. These kind of joints right here, as long as they're not being pulled out, they probably would hold pretty well. Also, Sturg, you mentioned internal supports do tend to make a drill go in wrong because they're hitting at one edge, so they might start pushing the way it's more open. Yeah. Ooh, and seals are good. Just need to upload a new video. Ooh. You do more of that stuff too. Huh. Yeah, and suddenly they do look like gun barrels with silencers on them, or just really extended barrel itself. And right in the middle, he has extra attachments. Because you can't be sci-fi without extra bits.
With those all lined up and ready to go, I'm going to make some triangular armor to go over the barrels.
Oh?
In the original model, the guns are literally just big triangles, or I guess tetrahedrons. But to mimic that form, I've scored a bunch of triangles from this 0.5 mm styrene.
Huh. Also, just notice how many cuts he has in his cutting mat. Dude.
A little bit of CA glue, and they go right into place.
Oh, she was doing it on top of them? Ah. They fit surprisingly well.
There's a bunch of guns, though, so this took a while.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I should have kept the individual halves together and just bent them instead of placing the two halves separately, but live and learn, I guess.
Maybe. I could see that working, but depending on how sharp of an edge you want, bending might not quite have what you need, and just filling in the gap could be easier. I can see it working both ways, depending on how much that is actually even able to bend. One of the things you can get sometimes when these things are very durable is they might try and straighten out, and before they set, they'll just rip themselves out of the glue. So you'll be set with one side is glued in, the other isn't, and you have to then apply pressure and then hope it has the right angle, and if it's not bent to the right way the second time, and there's a lot of things that go weird when you try and bend things, because sometimes paper's just a bitch that way, and this does not look like paper. Also, it's really cool just looking at them all turn out this way.
Of course, they can't just be left perfectly smooth, so they get textured just like the rest of the ship.
Oh, this will look so cool. This also fills the gaps along the center? Yeah, gap fill, man. Gotta love it. That's why I have Tamiya. Try a little thicker one, though.
For a finishing touch, I wanted to pull out some of this photo etch that I picked up as a bonus when I bought some fancy Japanese tweezers. These are little circular...
Of course it's Bandai. Are they see-through? Oh, they are! Oh, shit.
photo etch greeblies for adding detail to Gundam models, I'm pretty sure. But they're so cool.
I have Gundam models that I had to do, not this sheet from, but other of the decals. This man is way braver than I am because, well, one, my tweezers aren't honestly in as good shape, so they don't have the clipping edge necessary to grab these.
I had to pick up a few sheets. I get to show off my extremely fancy, extremely sharp tweezers, too.
Unironically, kind of jealous. To give you an idea, they do not actually meet at the edge because I've bent them somehow. Yeah.
Too sharp, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, injuries aside, the photo
Very
etch circles
useful.
fit perfectly.
The patience to do what he's doing right now, I've done, and I hate it.
Now, unlike the rest of the guns, the turret on the front is supposed to be a
That's a
missile launcher.
Gundam set.
So I figured it would be a great opportunity to use these proton torpedo tubes from a Bandai X-Wing kit.
Wait,
They
X-Wing?
need a little bit of greebling up to look the part,
I
though,
don't know
so some
Bandai did
styrene
that.
strips and pips will fill in those blank spots.
Huh. Also, Croc, you mentioned there's super in name for a reason. Yeah. You can make a fuller on the edge, so it's much weaker, so you can easily bend it clearly, and it doesn't have the strength to unbend itself. Oh, that would make good sense. Yeah, that would definitely do it. Because as soon as you get rid of the strength unbend, that's probably would have helped a lot. Things I wish I knew already. There's more to weld on. Oh, he's putting individual... How? Oh, God. And they're water attaching, or there's that glue? If it requires tweezers to apply it, I like Gundam building. I like how Bandai put everything together in such a way that you don't need glue to make it fit perfectly. I hate their sticker decal process. This is just stress watching this right now. That must be some type of really thin glue then for the plastic parts to stick.
Next, I want to use some styrene sheet to essentially shortcut smoothing out the raised sections on the sides.
Oh?
Put bluntly, sanding sucks, and I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
And PLA filament does not take to sanding well. You definitely
breaks.
can sand it, and you can get a smooth finish on FDM printed models with enough effort, but I'm lazy, and covering up flat surfaces with styrene is faster, easier, and for the most part, looks just as good.
Yep. One of the easier ways I found to deal with that is just add a layer like the Tamiya putty on there that's thicker and not as worn down as he did, and then spray paint that. Yeah. You could just get a layer on there. Now, you have to have big models that can hold a rough edge and then maybe sand that down. But you can do a lot of stuff before you get to the actual plastic. So I think someone found a solvent that melts the edge enough that if you just move it constantly, it'll get the right consistency you want. But that's a level of detail and actual chemical interactions that I don't want to deal with myself. All model cats have decals. Yeah, Corinne, they do. It's just like cool though. And the different material actually stands out a lot. It makes the ships look like rock, with pieces that stand out in a different material.
Next, I want to add some more detail to the gun turrets. The top surfaces are completely flat, so to give them a bit more texture, I cut out a bunch of these little styrene circle sections.
Oh?
I'm using more Weld-On 3 to bond these to the PLA surface. PLA and styrene aren't the same kind of plastic, so I have no idea what kind of interface it's creating between them, but they do stay in place, so I'm not going to think too hard about it.
Huh. So this one works by just putting it on the edge. Oh, it's just random pieces around it. Okay. Just to give it texture.
Of course, I still wanted to texture up the surface of the turrets with some more putty. The pencil marks I made earlier were helpful here for keeping everything inside the lines.
Adding texture intentionally. Huh. Honestly, by the end of it, it looks less like a material process for metal and more like it's made of stone. It does look like a stone finish.
And now it's finally time to put the guns in place. I'm just using CA glue here, which admittedly doesn't stick to brass very well, but I scratched it up with a file to give some tooth to the surface, which helped.
It actually stuck? Oh, shit. I mean, I've seen better usages, like not so much CA glue, super glue, but Gorilla Glue that actually foams up with water, and then you just sand down the excess foaming, so it creates a large bond around what you need. Also useful to fill in internal cracks to intentionally foam up the Gorilla Glue, because it works really well that way. They look like little drones. Oh, God. But very materially different.
Last, it's time to add some greeblies to the rear of the ship. The in-game model is totally flat back here, of course, but it seems to me that there should be some kind of engines or tubes or details or something. These are just a pair of tank wheels that I'm gluing in place to be the engines for starters. A few more tank parts and some styrene sheet I cut into triangles completes the look.
It's so, like, gribbly bits, just like the stuff you pull off the side and never use anywhere else. It just adds so much detail, man. Like, every little dot has something in it. What if he's going to add paint on top
Finally,
of it?
I can push the turret bases into place and give it a good look before priming everything and heading to the paint booth.
Oh, he is actually just going to paint it. How strong are the pieces on there, then? Like, unironically, I would be so afraid of trying to paint with too much force when it came to the turrets, because those things, I'd be so afraid of ripping them off with too much force, because just, if it's only a little super glue holding on, I don't know how strong that bond is.
Before we do that, though, I wanted to let you all know that if you want to try making a spaceship yourself, I sell kits and templates for building models that I've designed myself.
Okay, that's
think
cool.
That they're an easy way to get into the hobby, especially if you like the idea
Cutting out
of
the
kit bashing,
pieces.
but designing something from scratch is a bit intimidating.
Because you can then paint it and weather the painting to look right.
Getting to see all the different variations and paint schemes and modifications to my ships that you guys have come up with is the coolest thing ever.
That looks cool.
If I'm being honest, half the reason I've made the designs available is just to see the stuff you guys can come up with.
Completely justified.
All right, and with the plug out of
Also, the ship, like the packaging on this, storage for it, because it's just the sheet, that's actually an amazing product, because you can just fit tons of them in a folder, and nothing more than a folder.
the way, let's get back to the frigate.
It's so cool.
For painting, I knew that I was going to have to put in a bit more work than I usually do.
He has the airbrush booth. I don't have this because there's nowhere in my house that I actually have the space for this. Disappointing.
Because there aren't very many small details, what's going to sell the scale of the model will be the texture and colors of the surface. The first step of that is putting down a base layer of irregular stripes. I guess you could call this a form of pre-shading, since ideally this pattern will show through the next few layers of paint I put down. I'm aligning the stripes to...
This is actually a really cool technique similar to a zenithal in most model painting. In the sense that you add a white a white glow effect on top of a dark model, so that wherever thinner paints come down on, they'll be brighter or darker based on where light is more prevalent or less prevalent from where you sprayed the white overglaze on. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see it done a different way here.
I cut earlier wherever I can. Again, I'm doing my best to create the illusion that whatever space metal this ship is made out of, there's manufacturing marks or a grain to it, like it's been assembled out of these huge slabs of armor.
You can see there is a little more darkness on the edges, but that's fine because they're mostly shadowed. Also, Croc, so you're saying the subathon is going to pay up the building for model making. I mean, technically I did buy some Gundams, so it already has. And I do mean some, because I think I have G Gundam and one from G-Quux behind me as well. Oh, and the Freedom. So 3 Gundams. Granted, that was like, I think $70 total for all 3 of them. So seriously, Gundams are really good. Like, the value of them, it's insane.
To add a bit more variation in color, I'm going to splatter on some bright red speckles and spots.
Oh?
My thought process here is that red is already going to be an accent color, and the spots, if they shine through, will give a sort of...
Okay, I know this technique. I've never seen someone use a toothpick with it, though. Mostly I've just seen people go all in with their finger. But I've seen it for blood splatter. Never on a spaceship. Oh. Different usage.
Alien alloy look. Like, this isn't just steel plate, it's Voinian space armor. Alright, this is a good start, but so far all of this has just been the underlayer that I'm going to seal with a clear coat and then spray some chipping fluid onto.
Chipping fluid? This one I don't actually know. Clear coat I know because it's just a really good way so that it doesn't brush off when you hold things. For 3D printed models that are just more delicate, because sometimes the paint doesn't always adhere correctly. That's not a bad idea. And honestly, just for regular models, it's not a bad idea regardless.
With the chipping fluid down, I'm going to add a top coat of gray, which is definitely toning down the contrast to those stripes. But once I start doing the chipping, it'll start to come back through.
I've never used a chipping medium. Also, I'm being told by Kryn, you can use a cardboard box and rust is done like this. Oh. See, the way I've done rust is actually just getting this paint. Zealot Yellow from Army Painter on top of a silver base and then just wash it down a bit. It looks like really rusted paint or really rusted metal when it's done. But that's like heavy rust, not just tiny bits of rust. But it does work out really well. I want to know what the chipping material is.
I was real stingy with the chipping fluid, so even after soaking the surface with water and brushing at it pretty hard, I only took a few spots off.
Oh, it's just removing.
It's starting to look pretty good.
Oh, okay. It's removing paint layer. Oh, okay. So it's a solvent. Okay.
To paint the red accent marks on the wings, I started by masking everything off. I'm going to brush paint them, which means...
Also, for anyone wondering, the reason it's called masking tape is literally because he's using it perfectly for its use case right now. It masks off for painters things you need, but then it can be removed easily because it doesn't really have that much adhesive.
Masking isn't strictly necessary,
it's
but
a silly
I'd rather
little
not
thing,
risk messing up my nice gray surface.
Yeah. It works. Oh, I thought he was going to use a spray on this one. He's actually just using his hands. Usually I just try and over and under paint until things look even on my end, but I'm not doing very long straight surfaces, so I guess that makes sense. And because the masking tape is there, when it's pulled off, it has a guaranteed flat stripe with absolute precision because you didn't bend the tape. Oh, that's actually good. Splotchy paint. Multiple layers would probably solve that then. And he built in different layer textures as well, yeah.
give the red a bit more color variation, I'm going to sponge on some darker red splotches here and there.
Yep. Sponges, man. They're great for extra texture that looks random. Never had the patience for it myself. It looks like even the tape took a little bit off itself.
Now with the tape off, it's looking pretty good.
It does.
Next,
Ooh,
I want to...
the part that would get me every time, though, and I'd obsess over needlessly, you can see it just a bit right here where this edge isn't as clean. I would probably try and do it, but maybe he'll do something else that covers it up in a bit. Also, being told by Cringe, shipping fluid is not a solvent. It dries unevenly, so when you scratch it, it removes itself in flakes. Oh, okay. That's different. When I've done pulls before, it's usually like actually pulling some of the extra paint off, not actually breaking it off physically. Interesting.
Next, I want to do some weathering. Oil paints are my go-to for adding more color variation and streaking to a surface.
Oils.
So to start, I'm just sort of laying it down in a semi-random pattern.
The thing I just said about removing it, I got the idea from oil paints. I strictly use acrylic because I just don't want to deal with some of the hassle of oil drying for so long. But even then, if you do it fast enough, the process works. What he's about to do is then the same thing I mentioned. Also, a wash can do it, but it might not work nearly as well on this because oil just does this perfectly. Because it doesn't fill every
once I've
crack,
given it a
it
few
fills
minutes
a
to
lot
dry,
of
I'll
them.
wipe off as much as I can.
Yep. And it also leaves a little staining behind.
Then repeat. A few rounds of this and I can start to slowly build up a mottled, filthy surface.
Multiple rounds. Huh. I'm used to models with very deep recesses, way deeper than what he has, and he's probably wiping a lot harder, so he's getting into the recesses. Another option would probably be to do a very light pass, or even thinning it down so that it hits only the lower areas, than doing a very white or a very light wipe of the rag to get it off. I guess works both ways. But he's also trying to stain the rest of the area too, isn't he? You don't have to worry about drying because oil just doesn't. Honestly, with how he's using it, a wash might actually work better. The thing about a wash is it stains everything. And for an oil, you can remove almost most of it. So there's much less staining where you don't want it to be stained. Since he wants everything stained, a wash might have actually been easier on him on this part. But that's a lot of wash, and it isn't nearly as controllable either. If his groups were deeper, it might actually work better, but that would also not be what he's looking for. That said, I mean, oils just look so freaking good by the end, man. They really do. They just shine in a way.
This technique is using at least a few different colors. White oils come next, again pulling it down in the same direction as the grain of the surface. But only dots this time. Huh. And pulling them specifically. I've actually seen this done to make a pattern of weathering, to make something being pulled from reds, grays, browns, and sometimes even yellows, and then streaking them down to look like runoff stains on a building. I guess it would work on a ship too. And you see only the barest outline of the dots that were on there. I actually remember to use a brush for this on the wings, and I think that was a little bit more successful than the paper towel.
Because now it makes little streaks instead.
For the greeblies in the rear, I'm just going to repeat the same sort of process, smearing it all over with oil paints and then wiping it all off to help bring out all those little details.
Yeah, I thinned down the oil paint as well, too. Yeah, you can see in the really deep recesses, it just sticks around. He could probably do a ton of dry brushing with all the texture he had, and it would look pretty good.
For the corners and edges, I'm going in with a plain artist's pencil.
Really?
Graphite has a great shine to it, and scuffing up the pointiest parts of the ship like this gives the impression of heavy wear or impacts.
Huh. I mean, of course, anyone who's not used a PC when they started school would know graphene because it's pencil. because it's what they used after lead was realized it was lead. I never actually thought to use one as a modeling aspect. I'm going to actually have to remember this for just future decorations on some of my larger models when I eventually get around to painting them. Just using a pencil of all things. Huh.
And finally, it's time to install the guns. I kind of underestimated how many layers of paint I added.
I'm getting
which
a
meant
lot of
that
ideas
once
just
these
how
were
to
in.
paint on
They
this.
were in, and they weren't coming out anytime soon.
Oh, damn. Magnet or just clicked?
Now, I recorded this after I had hit everything with a satin clear coat, since the original ship has a bit of a shine to it, but mine turned out to be a little bit too shiny.
Oh?
To remedy that, I just took the whole thing back to the paint booth and spritzed on a layer of warm matte gray. You can see how far away I was holding the airbrush. This really is just a dusting on top of everything. For a final touch, I knew that I would need a stand, so I built this.
I mean, he doesn't have to use gray, just a matte finish as well. Like literally a clear coat that's matte would do the same job. And you don't lose the color possibly as much.
Horrible little thing in Blender. It's not my greatest example of 3D modeling, but it more than does the job.
If it works.
Especially with this little brass tube in the top.
Yep.
That slips right into a hole that I very carefully drilled in the underside, and from there I called it a wrap.
And still infinitely better than every damn flight stand GW has ever made. And yes, I am very biased against them because they are so bad.
The escape velocity games, well, they definitely show their age. Graphically, I think Nova still holds up quite well, but the first two games are of their time. More so than that, they're just not modern games, and there's a million and one little things that betray that,
But the
from
ship
UI
looks so
to
cool.
quality of life stuff to the game's sense of humor. Ambrosia Software shut down for good in 2019, though they'd pretty much stopped making games by the mid-2000s, focusing on utilities like audio or screen capture applications.
Really? So they're more like streamer focused then.
In fact, the only reason I've been able to keep playing Escape Velocity, able to record gameplay for this video, heck, the reason I had access to those 3D files I used to print this model, is because of the fan community. A few dedicated folks have done a lot of hard work to keep the games playable on modern machines and accessible, even as Ambrosia shut their doors.
On the one hand, it's almost lost media. On the other hand, I love that it's still around. And the company wasn't dicks about it and started suing the people keeping their game alive, which sounds like it should be a stupid thing, but that's actually a thing that happens if the fan community tries to keep something up. And it's like, yeah, no, we closed down, but we still want to sell the rights so someone else can sell it to you again. It sounds like I'm describing a scam.
Just one of the advantages of cultivating a fan base of modders and coders, I suppose.
Yep.
I'll include a link in the description to where you can download and play all 3 Escape Velocity games, and
That
it
does
even
look so
includes an
cool.
archive
Like-
of old plugins and total conversions.
X-Wing. It reminds me of the X-Wing style because of the two main side, but also like a TIE fighter was added in with the body of an X-Wing. They're definitely someone who saw the Star Wars movies, which isn't saying much because time period, but still.
As well. There have been a number of spiritual successors to Escape Velocity.
There were?
Like Nave or Endless Sky, both of which I've enjoyed, or Seabeams, which I'm looking forward to playing once it comes out.
Ah,
For a time, Peter Cartwright, the original creator of Override, was even heading up a proper modern remake. That project, sadly, has a bit of an uncertain future, since Cartwright unexpectedly passed away at the end of last year.
okay, that got
All
darker
that
than
to
I
say,
thought.
the Escape Velocity fan community is still around and kicking, nearly 30 years later. I know for a fact that some of you are watching, so big shout out to the Novaverse Discord and the Escape Velocity subreddit, because you guys are cool as hell. I'll give one last plug here to remind you guys that if you want to try scratch building your own spaceship from styrene, I sell kits and templates on my Etsy, which I'll be sure to have linked below. Thanks for watching, everyone,
I've never
and I'll
worked
see you
with
next time.
styrene. I wonder how difficult it is. That looks so incredibly cool. Like, unironically, the ship he made looks even cooler than it did in the game when he brought it up. That's because he put so much time and effort into it. And even though he had the files, it just, all the little extra bits, the details at the back, it still looks incredibly simplified, incredibly geometric, incredibly based on designs that were from a time period where you just couldn't have that much detail thrown in. But it looks ominous because of all the little extra textures. It doesn't look like metal. I know what he was going for there, like it's sheep added together. But no, this looks like he made a stone ship with metal attachments that just happen to fire. And it's so cool. This is cool, man. Just absolutely and utterly cool. So So if you guys haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. This is awesome. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.